So this is Aaron and Justin Talk sequels. I'm Justin.
He's Justin.
Yep. And he's
I
Aaron.
just wanted to do it in a different way. There you go.
Oh, that's nice. Let's try that again. Welcome to Aaron and Justin Talk sequels. That's Aaron.
Oh, that's Justin.
Oh, you son of a bitch. And today we're starting a series that I'm excited about. We are covering Indiana Jones.
Yeah, and these are like, there's Indiana Jones or Star Wars, Back to the Future. These are ones that I feel like are on our list, but they're like someday ones because I feel everybody may cover them in some fashion and they've been talked about a lot. So we never really know when to get to them. But I think these are real emotional ones that you just felt like now's the time to do the Indiana Jones series. And I was like, let's do it.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with there being a part 5 coming out. And you're right, these have been done to death, but I actually haven't seen most of these in at least 15 years, and rewatching these movies, they're a lot of fun. It's fun to look back at them with a critical eye and see the things that are amazing and the things that really don't hold up well at all.
I'm interested to hear what doesn't hold up.
And I'm excited to get into it. So we're gonna try to stay on track. It's hard a lot of times to beat the first, and in this case, I don't think any of them beat the first.
No, they don't. And honestly, Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's probably Spielberg's best film.
Sorry, that's Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, because this is a George
that's
Lucas
what it was
property,
changed to.
and he likes to change the title of his movies.
It was known as Raiders of the Lost Ark.
What do you think about Lucas always doing shit like that?
Was it? I mean, I don't know. Was it him? I mean, it just made sense in that when they came out with Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, that in order to put him in a box set and sell him on VHS, you probably just needed to. I mean, they didn't like physically change it in the movie. It doesn't say Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. They just call it on the box art. I think that's fine.
Yeah, that's a good point. So the story, do you know the story of like the fourth one getting made and why it took so long?
Not really, only beyond the fact that Lucas was never happy with a script.
Yeah, I mean, basically it's that, because these films had a weird agreement where Spielberg and Ford and Lucas all had to agree. If one of them didn't agree, it didn't get made.
Well, that's not a weird agreement, right? I mean, that seems like a pretty logical agreement. If you have the producer, director, and writer and a star all agreeing on something, you probably don't want one of them to be like, this is stupid.
It's an interesting dynamic. I don't think there are a lot of setups for franchises like that where there's 3 different people that if they say no, it's just dead in the water.
Right. Well, like James Cameron doesn't probably care what Sam Worthington feels about Avatar. He's probably like, you're just in my movie, all right?
You know James Cameron does not care.
No, he does not. But it's just to the star power. I think they're they are equally powerful Hollywood individuals. So that makes sense to me.
But Raiders of the Lost Ark, from all the way back in 1981. I don't know if these numbers are adjusted, but I don't think they are. $20 million budget. Just under $400 million in box office. This thing was a smash hit.
Yeah, it was huge.
And
no one had ever seen anything like it at that point.
Was this movie... Hey, you know how you made Han Solo super sexy by being just kind of a chauvinist, sexist guy that did whatever the fuck he wants? We're going to do that, but you're going to be an archaeologist this time.
You think he's chauvinist in the movie, though?
What's the word for... I was a teenager when you left, is what Kieran Allen says to him. And
well, he may have been too. I mean, they're about the same age.
It's true. It's possible. But
I think they were both young. That was one of his young Indiana Jones adventures, was getting with
Marion Ravenwood,
yeah. Speaking of good exposition and easily getting some backstory out, in that simple scene where she tells him that, you learn so much about them and how their relationship was. And all she really has to say is like, I was a child and you left me. Like, I don't know. It was cool. Or I was a teenager. I don't know. I think she said I was a child, right?
She might have said I was a child.
She's just a kid. They were both kids is what she was getting at.
But he's just such an interesting character. I can see the appeal where if you're working your boring 9 to 5 and you watch this, you are escaping. This is pure serial. This is escapism porn.
Well, the idea behind it is that Lucas and Spielberg grew up watching these movie serials. You know, they would always show multiple of them. Like, you could just go. It was like watching TV. You'd go and you'd get a little story. What was his name? Buckaroo Banzai? Is that Buckaroo?
Oh,
Whatever.
I know what you're talking about, but
Flash Gordon. Yeah. The Rogers in the 25th century. Wasn't that Rogers? Obviously,
Buck
I don't know
Rogers?
a lot about these.
Yeah.
Buck Rogers. There you go. Anyway, so these are like little short things. They would be little movies. They would be a strong alpha male battling aliens or whoever, and then it would end on a cliffhanger, and they're very sensational. There was beautiful women, and Lucas just wanted to do one of these in a modern era in 1980. He just wanted to, I just have this story for this guy, and we'll call him Indiana Jones. He's an archaeologist, and it's an adventure serial, and hey, Spielberg, you want to do it? It's going to be awesome. We got Harrison Ford, whatever. The first was Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they go after the Ark of the Covenant, the fabled casket or box that would hold the mythical 10 Commandments that Moses brought down from Mount Sinai and smashed, and then they put the pieces in there. There you go. That's it.
Yeah, we're talking about the 10 Commandment actual physical pieces. These movies did they all start with the cold open?
There was always something that would the Paramount logo would form into wherever he was at the moment.
Yeah,
and there'd be a little cold open. Yeah.
And
so in Raiders,
yeah,
go for it.
No, you go for it. You do.
Me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, Alfred Molina, you notice him? He's in the beginning there.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy. He's one. So Indiana Jones is this archaeologist from America. I think like San Francisco. He's somewhere in South America, and they're searching for. He's like a grave robber, so he goes and steals artifacts to give it to museums, basically.
Yes.
So there's that great set piece where he goes in, and there's the rolling ball and all the booby traps, and then you meet the bad guy. What's the bad guy's name?
I don't remember his.
That's always on his coattails, and he waits for Indy to get all the work done, and then he steals his Belloc. Thank you. Yeah, that's it.
Belloc.
So Belloc takes it. Indy, gets out there, gets out of there with his life. He goes back to school. We learn he's a teacher. The girls all like him. And then his friend Marcus tells him that some guys from the government. So anyway, so that was just like a fun cold open to show that he's a guy that goes into booby-trapped old relics in order to steal things from museums.
Did this movie
So Marcus tells him that...
booby traps?
Probably not. I mean, that's another thing that was in those movie serials. Fight off booby traps and savages and things like that in order to save the girl or win the prize. And that was the thing. Like, not to go on a big tangent again, but I always heard archaeologists talk about how like Indiana Jones got them into being archaeologists, and they thought that was cool growing up. But at the same time, a real archaeologist would probably be more interested in all of the amazing technology that the civilizations built into booby traps and secret doors and everything. That is way more interesting than the actual gold little figure at the end of the line.
It's
anyway, so the government guys tell Indiana Jones that Hitler is big into the occult, and he has his people going everywhere looking for crazy artifacts, religious artifacts that may have some mythical power to them, could be real power, and that they're looking for the Ark of the Covenant is what Indy figures out. So they let him go and try to find it first, and that pretty much gets us into the meat of the movie.
Yeah, and it's just Indy traveling across the world with a cool plane flying on a paper map. And these movies are fun because they are set piece after set piece with a gotta do something here, get to the end. And it's always just kind of a fun ride. Where is Marion when he finds her?
Nepal. So yeah, because her father, Ravenwood, was like the foremost expert on finding the Covenant. He never found it, but he was always looking for it.
Yes.
So Abner Ravenwood. So then he's like, well, I need to go find him. It turns out that he's dead, and Marion, his daughter, has the piece that Indy's looking for that will help them find the Ark of the Covenant. I mean, do we need to get too deep into the weeds with this? I don't know about the whole Well of Souls and Tanis and all that stuff, but suffice it to say, she's now his partner. They got to go to Cairo, meet up with John Rhys Davies, who's his other contact there, and
who's taking
they got to fight Nazis and try. Yeah, exactly. And they got to go fight some Nazis and get the Ark before Bellick does, because Bellick is now working for the Nazis to try to find it, but they're looking in the wrong area. Anything else worth mentioning on this journey?
Marion gets kidnapped a lot, and Indiana Jones
She's definitely a damsel in distress.
Lets her stay kidnapped, which I find delightful.
Well, he has to, because he's right in that they would be suspicious. If she gets loose, then they would be looking for whoever helped her escape. So yeah,
just putting people in harm's way for his goals. Like, this guy is reckless, and I love it.
Unlike a brilliant tactician, even says it in the movie, I'm just making this up as I go along. I think he says that to John Rhys Davies at the end, when he's just like, I'm just going to take a horse and try to go after it was on a truck, right? And he was on the horse. Yeah. Anyway, so he finds the Ark of the Covenant, but of course Bellick is there to grab his prize, so he steals it. They get held prisoner, and then here's the thing that I was like, yeah, this is kind of dumb. This is the dumbest part of the movie to me, is that nobody ever opens the damn thing up. Like, I guess they're all scared of it, so they think they can't just open it to see what's in it because there's some power of God inside. I don't know. It just seems somebody should open it up. Just open it up.
Open it on the island.
I know, but the excuse is we need to go to this island and perform a Jewish ritual in order to safely open it.
Yeah, because he explains,
because you don't want to go to Berlin and just open it for the Fuhrer and find nothing in it. I'm like, well, maybe you should just open it up while it's sitting here in the desert, just to be like a little peek. Like, if they open it up, was it really God going to come pouring out? No, I feel like it was like because they brought it to that island, because they made such a big deal, because they had such a ritual going on, is what really kicked up the scary ghost stuff. That's what I think. They should have just took a little peek while it was in Tanis.
Agreed. These movies demand that you ignore logical inconsistencies all over the place. The first couple of movies, they're pretty good about not pushing it too far. Like, you can ask the simple question, if the actual bricks are so powerful, why didn't they melt Moses? How did they get them in the box without the crafters of the box being killed?
Well, my answer to that is that they're harmless to anyone who's not an evil Nazi. That was it. That was literally the power of God destroying the Nazis on that island. That was it. Like, that's why Indy and Marion were safe, because they were like pure evil and God was just taking them out.
No, they were only safe because Indiana Jones knew to close his eyes. Because
no, I mean, but that was just his take on it. It doesn't mean that was like useful.
Holy shit, there's a bomb going off. Marion, close your eyes.
Hey, it worked this time. It might work next time. Here's the thing I want people to understand. And we're not going to get into the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull too much, just beyond maybe this, maybe if you have something to say quick. But since the history of Indiana Jones movies, there has been some wild supernatural shit going on in every movie.
Every movie.
Settle down if there's aliens in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, because literally the power of God killed Nazis.
Melted their faces.
The third one, where the knight is like an immortal. I mean, come on. And that's what everybody forgot when Kingdom of Crystal Skull comes out. They were like, aliens? Pff, Indiana Jones has gone too far. I'm like, no, he's been doing stuff like this the whole time.
Yeah.
Maybe aliens is a little far, but still, there's been some supernatural stuff going on in every movie. Anyway, that's my soapbox for that.
Beings. And we will talk about that when we talk about the second best Indiana Jones movie, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Kidding me. Oh, God. Yeah, we'll get there.
So, Indy, they end up happy and in love again? Is that where they stayed?
I mean, for a little while, I guess. But, they survived on the island, and the government took the Ark and put it away in Area 51, apparently, where no one will ever find it, which is an amazing ending. That's maybe one of my favorite endings of any movie. The guy's like, it's with our top men. And then he's like, who? Top men. And then you see that reveal where they literally box it up and put it in a room with 1,000 boxes just like it. That is a perfect hide it in plain sight. Like no one would ever find it. It's amazing. Doesn't matter if it's Area 51 or not. That's funny. We'll find out that later. Anyway,
yeah,
the movie's great. I mean, I'm just a super fan.
It's deeply ingrained in our culture where it's been ripped off a million times, and it's awesome. Yeah, big fan of the movie.
Well, me personally, growing up, I didn't really get into Star Wars until like the 90s. I think when they re-released is when I really started watching Star Wars. But when I was growing up in the 80s and the early 90s, my best memories of when I was young like that, it was Back to the Future, it was Indiana Jones, Batman, stuff like that. But Indiana Jones was like, he was the character that you could actually be. Like you could play this guy. Like you loved Marty McFly, but the best parts of that movie was the DeLorean. Like everything you loved about your favorite movies when you were younger were always the cool things that was going on, not exactly the character. But Indy was like the first like character that you could like dress up like him and be that guy. And that's why I think it just really appealed to me as a kid, is that he was the star. It wasn't really what he was surrounded by that was the big part of the movie. It was him himself. He was just so cool.
Yeah, no, I completely
And that's why
agree.
I'm an architect nowadays. Not an architect, sorry, an archaeologist.
I love it. Indiana Jones,
when we were
architect.
talking about this earlier, I probably kept saying architect too, now that I think about it. Maybe I did say archaeologist.
I think you said archaeologist. So that's actually a really good segue.
Final thoughts on Raiders?
Final thoughts on Raiders. It's a classic. This is a movie that you borderline can no longer critique properly just because of the love that we have for it.
What do you think Spielberg's best film is? And you've probably seen all of them, just like I have. There might be one or two we haven't seen, but for the most part, I feel like we've seen all of his films.
There's so many different parts to his career.
Yeah,
like
there's different Spielbergs.
Yeah, so like Bridge of Spies is probably my favorite modern Spielberg. Is that the right title?
Yeah, you could say Bridge of Spies. Yeah, I think so.
If we're talking classic Spielberg, Jaws is one of the most perfect movies ever made. Like, and I'm new to Jaws, which is funny, and God, it is just objectively amazing. So he's done so much good stuff. It's really hard. What about you?
But classic Spielberg, you got to say Raiders. Well, you didn't even answer. So you'd say Jaws?
Yeah,
is that what you're saying?
Jaws was my answer.
I say Raiders is probably his best of all time. I'll do the classic Spielberg. I would say Raiders. What do you think about 90s Spielberg? Because I think there's classic Spielberg, which pretty much reaches the 70s and 80s. And then you got 90s. Because that's different. Ever since Jurassic Park, he became a different filmmaker. Not bad, but there was something about him that changed because he was like a superstar filmmaker.
It was like
probably Schindler's List is what I would say.
It's like the chasing the Oscar feels like that's his decade there.
Yeah,
he would make
like Saving Private Ryan is amazing, but there's parts of it that aren't that great. Because maybe the end isn't that great. I think
if I remember correctly, he would kind of do a one for me, one for you in the 90s.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he did like Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, Jurassic Park 2, Amistad.
Yeah.
But he's the one guy that it's not that he was like going for the Oscar. That's what I think about him. I just think he made the kind of films that Oscar was like, those are the kind of movies we like. Like he almost gave them, he created what Oscar became in the 90s, I think. And now maybe still today. Although today it's more about, this is a bigger subject. I feel like today it's more about Oscar only wants depressing character study films. Like that's what, if you feel bad watching movies, those are the movies that win Oscars now.
And those are the movies that...
there's always been some of those, and I'm sure they're great.
I am sure
but
they're
I
great.
just I don't want to watch those depressing movies, but they're the ones that always win the biggest awards, and people are like, have you not seen this movie? It's amazing.
I don't know if these people don't have
three
kids?
billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri, or Minnesota, whatever the fuck that name is.
Yeah, like I'm really busy. If I have time to do a movie, it's got to be something that I'm going to enjoy the hell out of, not something that makes me want to drink more. I have kids. I already want to drink.
Saying.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. But Temple of Doom, or as I'd like to call it, Indiana Jones and the Accidental Adventure, because we have Indiana Jones just going on an adventure by accident, all because of the cold open. What cold open was it this time, Aaron?
Oh, this is one of my favorite cold opens because it's definitely super fun. And Spielberg got to do a big choreographed dance scene. But Indy is in Shanghai. He wants a diamond, and he has a little god figurine that the gangsters there in Shanghai want, but they're very like iffy about giving it to each other. It's very dangerous for some reason. But before that all happens, I'm sorry, there's Willie Scott, who is Kate Capshaw's character, who plays the blonde American doing her she sings Anything Goes off the top. It's a great scene though. I mean, I really like it. And actually, fun fact, the opening credit where they show Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is the only Indiana Jones film where they actually use the font that you see on the box cover.
Really?
Yeah, because when they get back to The Last Crusade, it looks the same as Raiders. And then when they do Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, it's once again the Raiders font, originally called the Temple of Death.
Yeah, they would both make sense.
Fun fact number 2.
Is this fun fact number 3, is this the one that helped lead to the PG-13 rating?
I always heard that, but I think there was other movies around that same time.
I feel like there was too.
But I heard that Spielberg fought for this new thing. Well, okay, if you don't want to give it a PG because they wanted to give it an R because it was, has a lot of hardcore stuff to it. People bursting into flames, hearts getting yanked out. You know, not that my dad knew any better because we definitely watched it when we were super young.
Definitely did.
And the story is that he was like, hey, how about we do this thing called PG-13? So we just say like you should be at least 13 or older, which seems about right. I think you could be 13 or older. Anyway. But then, since then, I've heard other stories that there was other movies that came out as where they came up with PG-13 because I don't even think this movie is rated PG-13.
No, like I think it came into existence after.
Yeah, so that story is probably not true. But there you go, audience. There's just a fun, not true story for you.
Yeah, might be true, might be not. Who knows? Look it up for yourself. So this movie, I think... I mean, I don't know about you, but I had always considered this one my least favorite.
No, it was always one of my favorites, and I never understood why people bashed it so much. It was really, I always heard the complaint that it was too dark, but that's fine. Why is dark not cool? I never understood that complaint, but that's the one I always heard.
I don't know exactly what it was about this movie, but it was always kind of meh. But you can see a lot of clear studio notes. They probably had a lot more creative control than that, but you definitely see a lot of things where it's like, this cold open has to be way bigger than the first cold open to match that. People really liked the supernatural stuff, so we got to crank up the supernatural stuff. It feels like this is a Raiders, but bigger. That's where I think a lot of people have a problem.
Yeah, I can see that. The other complaint I would always hear is that they feel Kate Capshaw's character is super annoying and it ruins the film for them. I didn't exactly ever like her. I didn't like her the way I liked Marion, but she never felt out of place. She always felt like she was exactly the character that they intended her to be. The annoying, complaining, screaming diva that Indy has to put up with in order to rescue the children. And that's I think she does an amazing job at being this annoying character. Man, Indy's got to put up with a lot of shit.
But she's also hot, so of course he's going to bang her.
Yeah, honestly, it's a nice way of having a different dynamic for the relationship. Like Marion hated him because they had a history, but then they came together. She hates him because she doesn't want to fucking be there. And she's like, I should be living my sweet life in Shanghai like I have been, performing and wearing jewelry and fancy dresses. And now here I am in God knows where with scary foreign stuff.
Yes. That is actually another good title for this movie, Indiana Jones and the Scary Foreign Culture I Don't Understand.
Yes, exactly. I'll throw this out there too. Willie Scott to me is America. She is the audience surrogate. She is the white 80s America that has no understanding of the outside world and believes it to be scary and bizarre. And I think that's what Spielberg is trying to get across. He amps it up to a comedic effect, like with the meal that they all have and how they're eating chilled monkey brains and snakes and shit, because that is how crazy white America feels about Indians and people that are foreign in that time period, because we just didn't have the internet. We didn't have all we knew was from what we understood from movies. So that's his way of like being a caricature almost of foreigners.
Okay, and I'm so happy that you brought this up, because my answer to that is he did this thing where I was a kid with no knowledge of India, and he put a caricature in my head of what this culture was. And so I think I spent a lot of time having incorrect ideas about other cultures because I watched these fucking movies, if that makes sense.
And here's the bigger question. Is that Spielberg's problem. Does he and Lucas have to make a movie that teaches, or can he just make a movie that entertains? And I don't think he made a movie that was at the expense of any culture.
And that's the question. And the answer is he has no responsibility. But if he was being any kind of a decent man, he could at least make it accurate.
But it wouldn't be entertaining and funny and gross and like that's what he wanted. Like that's the kind of movie they were trying to make.
I mean, it was the 80s.
They want to freak out Willie at this dinner party, so let's have crazy food.
If the internet is correct, their claim after people were upset at the characterization that Indians ate that shit was that the Indians knew the white people thought that, and so they made that stuff to screw with the white people.
Okay. If you're not smart enough and you can't tell what's a movie and what's not, and you think that things exist in a movie are true when it's called Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, then that's on you. Like, that's not Spielberg's fault.
I'm not blaming Spielberg, but I was 10.
No, I'm not saying you personally, but I do think this is America nowadays, and they do have some issues where they want to take apart things that came before because it's a little out of time, okay. He wouldn't make a movie like this nowadays, probably.
No.
But I just don't think he created anything that was at the expense or at laughing at another culture.
No, I definitely agree with that. And that, yes, this movie
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
This movie is a product of the 80s.
Yes, for sure.
It's more interesting to talk about these little bits and pieces, and I think this plot is pretty quick. So, Indiana Jones, after the cold open, their plane crashes in India, basically, somehow.
He has to leave the cold open because he was poisoned, and the gangsters are trying to kill him, right?
Yeah.
So Willie's now with him. We also skipped over the fact that we meet Short Round, his little Robin to his Batman. He's a funny kid. I can't remember his name, but he pops up again. He's in Goonies. Yeah, Data in Goonies. He's the kid. Yeah, he's the kid with all the contraptions. I am so sorry if that is not the same character, but I'm pretty sure it is. Because he's amazing as Short Round. I love that kid.
Yes, he's in Goonies next year.
Thank you. Oh my God. He is an Americanized kid from Hong Kong, and that's what I love about his role is that he is like he wears the baseball cap. He's very Americanized, and I think he has great lines. He says "Okie dokie," Dr. Jones. I always call him Dr. Jones. I think he's a great little friend to Indiana Jones, so I always loved his character. But that's where he meets Short Round. They have to escape Shanghai. They get on a plane, but the plane is owned by the gangster. The pilots ditch the plane and let them crash is basically what the idea is.
And Dan Aykroyd sold them the plane tickets.
Yeah, I know he had a little cameo. You didn't know that was him?
Never.
It totally
before.
Sounded like him. I knew that was Aykroyd from the moment he spoke back in the day.
Yeah.
That's Aykroyd.
Never picked up on it at all. One of the reasons that I wanted to do this series was I never realized Temple of Doom happens before Raiders of the Lost Ark chronologically.
Right.
So this is a younger Indiana Jones that is a little less seasoned.
Like a year, maybe, I think? A year or two?
I think
this says it's 35.
Yeah, and I think Raiders
and
is
when
37.
Was Raiders? I thought it was 36.
Or maybe 36, okay. And then the last one is 38.
Late 30s.
Yeah.
Now, the thing in Raiders that worked is that Indy has a goal in mind, and he doesn't get sidetracked by all the supernatural shit. And honestly, he doesn't believe in any of it anyways. Like, the only time he actually believes it is when he sees, or when he doesn't see, but when some shit goes down on the island, and he apparently got saved by God. So I'm sure Indy, after that, has a better appreciation for the supernatural. But now that they made Temple, and that came before it, you think he would have had a little more belief in the occult and the supernatural since he becomes a literal zombie in the old voodoo Haitian way, you know, the original zombies where people would just be taken over. That's like an old voodoo thing. And now it's become obviously the undead.
A voodoo thing, you say.
And also yes.
So not really an Indian practice?
Yeah, I don't think it is an Indian thing. Yeah, you're right. They probably mixed cultures just to make a more sensational story.
Yeah. Short Round.
Anyway,
so Short Round's parents are dead, and so this American archaeologist is like, "Hey, Chinese orphan, why don't you come and hang out with me in other countries?"
I don't think it wasn't Indy's idea. You know who Short Round is? Short Round he's like the guy. Like, he's a kid, but he's connected. He probably was a contact. Oh, you got to talk to Mr. Short Round if you want to know how to get in good with the gangsters. Like, Mr. Short Round knows it. And then he shows up at behind the alley, and it's this little kid who has all these contacts. So I think that's literally who he is. Like, he's the guy he's the kid that knows everything and can get Indy wherever he wants. He just happens to be a kid. That's what I like about Short Round.
That's pretty good. But yeah, so they're in India, and they stumble upon a village that looks like shit.
Well, what do you think about the escape from the plane? Because the plane's crashing, they jump out in the inner tube.
It's just bigger and bolder and better than Raiders, so they jump out of a plane.
I think the inner tube is the stupidest thing that's ever happened in the history of Indiana Jones. And I adore the atomic bomb set piece.
Yeah.
Which everybody hated. I love it. But I think the inner tube is the stupidest thing that's ever happened.
I agree. Yeah, it demands a huge leap of faith in logic, and
I mean, how do you survive a plane crash? By slamming into the ground? I don't understand it.
It's full of air.
And then the footage of them riding down is so bad.
And they rode that giant Himalayan mountain all the way down to India somehow.
They hit the snow, and then they went for miles and miles and miles, and then they hit the water, and then they apparently went for miles and miles. But then they black out. They all fell asleep and dissolve. So they were probably on the water for days, I guess. And then they end up in this, as you said, little Indian village.
I think the expectation that he is setting is that the rest of the world is like Narnia, and it goes from snowy to wet to jungle, just within a matter of feet. So yeah, Indian village. The Indian people are such savages that they worship a rock, and that rock keeps all their plants alive. And somebody came and stole their rock, and before they will help Indiana Jones get to Delhi, he has to go find their rock and bring it back to them. And Indiana Jones is like, you know what? That sounds cool. I'm going to do that.
I don't think he was down with it. I think he was kind of really, for a rock? I don't know, man. But then they tell him, oh, by the way, all of our children were kidnapped too. Then he's like, oh, well, all right, I'll go help you now. I don't think the rock was going to get him there. But that shaman, that village leader, he was pretty convincing. He really was selling it to Indy. But I still don't think the rock would have made him go if not for the children part.
I mean, he did have that magic archaeological knowledge where he knows every artifact in the world. And he did know what kind of special rock it was.
Well, and he did understand what it meant to them. Whether he believed it or not, I think he understood what it meant to them.
Yeah.
So that is something that he's got respect for cultures, and he has respect for their beliefs. So that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay, Here's the part where I get the complaint about the movie, perhaps even Raiders to some degree, is that he's a white savior. That's the trope that is old-fashioned. That is the thing that they really wouldn't do much anymore because it is a product of the 80s, is that he's the white savior. Oh, here comes the white guy. He'll save the Indian village and all the colored people,
Oh, wait. Are you saying that there were no intelligent Indian men that might happen to have been...
Well, when they show I think Spielberg does a good job of showing the village and how literally poor and decrepit it is. It doesn't seem like anyone's up to the task, and that they really do feel put down and down in the dumps, and that none of them are powerful enough to rise to take on the palace that apparently was abandoned years ago because that monarchy doesn't exist anymore, but now it's become lived in again by some new culty type thing that stole their stones and is trying to take over the place. I don't know. That's kind of confusing to me. But it didn't seem like there was anyone up to the task of taking on the palace and getting the stones back and getting their children back before Indiana came. Now, that's a trope. I get it. It's the white savior trope. I'll give you that.
Yep. So they meet a bunch of people in this palace. They also run into the British who are there doing
scouting inspection. Yeah, it's this British general. So he's got his army tucked away somewhere, I guess.
Yeah, because India is, at this point, still part of the British Empire, right?
Possibly. But that makes sense, yeah. I think they do a good job of the palace in that it's not some out-of-time, old-fashioned-y thing. It's a mix of everything. It has a lot of culture to it. But even the prince's right-hand man wears a business suit. He's modern. Indy's able to communicate with them, and I think Indy's just trying to respect their culture and take advantage of their hospitality, but at the same time he's trying to get info on where the stones are and if this palace has to do with this bizarre cult that stole the stones. and the children.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun mystery that he's trying to solve. And they try to kill him. They try to kill the blonde. There's that fun scene where they're going to hook up, but they're too stubborn.
Yeah, it's a great set piece. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, so he comes back in her room. They find a secret entrance, because then we got to get back into the meat of what Indiana Jones is all about, the adventures and secret doors and booby traps and stuff like that. So then the palace is, fortunately, has an entrance in her room for some reason that would go to where they're doing this bizarre ritual.
Murder cave. I call it a murder cave. And so, sir, I'm Steve. I'm your contractor. Do you want any entrances to the murder cave in any of the guest bedrooms? Okay. The rooms that are designated just for guests. Do you want murder cave entrances there? The answer, I guess, would be yes, so they could sneak up from the murder cave.
Oh, well, that's true, yeah. I think of it more as...
take the guests.
Oh, that was a really good meal. I had so many snakes, but I feel good. Are our guests okay? Do you have them in comfortable things? Oh, yeah, we put them in the old, your mother's old room. What? What if they find the secret entrance? They won't find it. You got to push on the lady's boobs. They're never going to find it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, so...
That's what I think it was.
The secret entrance to the murder cave. Hey, it's me, your contractor again. How do you want it to open? Do you want a button? A switch? No, how about a big pair of boobs that I got to hold on to every time?
Got to grab a hold of those guys and just push them in.
Yeah.
So they make it down to the murder cave.
Yeah, and they see a ritual, and they pull a heart out of a guy, but they don't open his chest. It's weird. He just goes right through it. For some reason, I remembered there being a hole.
Is there a way? I don't think there is, but I often watch this film feeling like there is an explanation for everything, and that it's not really supernatural. But sometimes I run into things that are like, no, it seems like it's supernatural.
Yeah, it's all supernatural. Hey, no hole. They just put the heart out.
But no hole. So maybe he didn't really grab his heart out.
No.
Maybe he just had the heart in his hand.
Remember,
and it was a magic trick.
As he went into the fire and he's screaming, his heart in his hand is going faster, and then his heart bursts into flames because the guy's
still could be
burning down
something that it still could be just an effect that he had. I mean, he could be a magician. You know,
then how do you explain the
are
voodoo
not
doll?
real? They do illusions.
Voodoo doll.
I don't know. See, that's one of those things where, like, I think I got the heart figured out, and then the voodoo doll comes in because it turns out the prince is actually part of the occult as well. However, I think he's also a zombie in that he's being mind controlled. By the big bad.
Oh, there's mind control as well.
Who performed the ritual.
From drinking blood.
Well, that's what the zombie is. See, the original zombie was the Haitian idea that you could take over someone's body without their knowledge, and you could make them do whatever you wanted, and they would just be like brain dead, basically. But still alive, but not in control. That's what a zombie was.
Oh, were
and
these
then George
Haitians
Romero, when he made Night of the
palace?
Living Dead, yeah, right? He made zombie into they die and awaken, and now that's how we know zombies today. Anyway, but yes, we already covered that. For some reason, there's a Haitian ritual done in India. I don't know why. Don't worry about it. We can mix cultures. That offends no one.
Nope.
No, sorry.
So the white savior gets voodooed. The supporting
Indy
cast
becomes a zombie.
Yeah, and the blonde woman that's always upset, and the young Chinese boy have to free him. And they do.
Indy, I love you. Fire cures zombieism.
Yes,
that's what you learn.
And then Indy frees all the kids. They start to make their escape.
So they have the one stone, right?
Yeah.
And then they have but because they have kidnapped these kids and enslaved them in order to dig to find, I think, the fourth and last stone.
Yep, the last two. There's a total of 5. They've got 3.
Oh, there's 5. Okay. So they have 3.
Yep. And
one of which they stole from the village. They had 2 of their own. So that's the deal with the kids. That's why the kids were enslaved or stolen to mine for the other stones, right?
Yes.
So this leads Indy and Short Round and Willie to rescue the children. That leads into the fun mine cart race, which actually Spielberg wanted in Raiders. I don't know if you're familiar with that. That was originally in Raiders, but it was too expensive. It didn't fit the movie. They took it out, so it was something he wanted to bring in one of the movies. Yeah. Are we missing anything important?
Well, real quick,
so far?
I just want to let everyone know the villain motivation. So they're trying to find these stones and forcing children into labor to get the rest of the stones so they can use their evil powers to drive the British out of India so that their savage ways can rule over the land again.
Oh, wow. I guess I never really put that together. Was that the deal?
The deal these guys represent the old India and the practice, and they wanted it back.
I didn't get the British part. That was interesting.
Well, there's...
So they wanted to drive them out. I thought it was just for power. They were just power hungry. But yeah, for a purpose. That makes sense.
And so they get out of the cave, and the big bad is still alive. He's got his savage guys, and they're on that long bridge.
Yeah, the rope bridge, right?
And Indiana, they kind of surround Indiana and them in the middle. No, Indiana is just in the middle. They've got the girl in short round.
Yeah, he's in the middle.
Cuts the bridge.
People fall to their death.
And who comes to save the day?
The British.
The British.
Oh, and so he's with the big bad voodoo dude, big bad voodoo daddy, on the bridge. God, I hated that band. Fucking, can we tangent it for a second? Yeah. Were you knowledgeable about the whole big band revival of the 90s, like the Cherry Poppin' Daddies and Brian Seltz? Like, what was with that shit? I hated that stuff. It was probably The Mask.
It was a really weird time in our life.
Because they kind of brought it back in that. They were like, hey, remember 20's big band and the big suits? We're back.
Mambo number 5 is what I keep thinking of. But that's way later, isn't it?
That's not really. Yeah, that's more Mambo. That's not so much the big band. Maybe it's related.
What is the word that I'm looking for when I'm thinking of this music? Oh, no, that was ska.
Ska.
Totally different.
Isn't that more of a punk thing, ska? Yeah, but I don't ska. I think ska has a little of that big band feel, like mixed with punk. Isn't that what ska is?
I'm not sure.
Like maybe there's more horns in your punk music.
This is a movies podcast.
If you have horns in your punk music, they call you ska. We'll figure it out. Anyway, so they're hanging onto the bridge. This is the other thing in that the Indy does the incantation that he picked up from being a zombie, I guess, and causes the stones to literally heat up and burst into flames, and 2 of them fall. The big bad voodoo daddy is trying to grab them as they fall. He ends up crocodile food, and Indy was able to grab the one rock that the village actually wants. So then they reach the top. Here come the British. All of the army is there to save the day. They shoot all the other people on the other side of the canyon.
All the savages, yeah.
That's how they're saved, right?
Yeah.
It's a great moment, though, when he comes back to the village with the rock and Willie and Short Round. And then all the villagers are like, oh, my God, he survived. Oh, he's got a rock. Great. And then the kids come running up, and it's a big reunion. I thought it was very emotional. I like that part. He saved the day.
Did you notice that the village had already been transformed? Like the greenery was all back and no longer looked bad.
I didn't notice that.
They made it restored.
So this is this movie is straight up supernatural.
Yeah, I think that's really why people didn't like it as much as the first one, is they really amped it up.
I don't get, people just have short-term memory, where they thought that Indy, it was all about him being an archaeologist, finding the Ark of the Covenant, and that nothing was supernatural about it. That's just why I think it's unfair to bash on Temple for being so wild with the supernatural when it was already there in the series.
And I mean, it's hard to call this not a hit. It had a budget of 28, and it made 333, roughly 60 million less than Raiders. So I guess that's how they saw it, as not a hit.
If it doesn't do as good as the first one, then you did something wrong.
Yeah, and so they do a course correction for Last Crusade. They calm it down. They have it be Nazis again. They have it be more Christian history again.
We'll get to that, but I think that's one of the funniest part is that Spielberg is like, I'm Jewish. Like, I don't believe in this shit. And Lucas is like, can you just do the Jesus cup thing anyways? Like, that it gives you life-saving powers and it makes you immortal? Because Jesus was the son of God, right? And Spielberg's like, no, but whatever. I'll do it. I'm a filmmaker. Who cares?
That's actually a fun commentary on really the number one bad problem with Last Crusade, which we'll cover next episode. But because with Raiders,
talk about that.
That's a shared Christian and Jewish story.
Exactly. That's how I always felt about it. Is that they both had a dog in that fight.
Yeah, but yeah, in Last Crusade, it's completely Christian side, and I'm excited to talk about it.
And I hear the new Indiana Jones is all about the golden plates and the Mormon temple and John. No.
God, I was gonna say,
Wouldn't it be awesome? Like Lucas is born again as a Mormon, and now he wants to tell a new Indiana Jones where like Indy has to go back in time and rescue John Smith so he can form the Mormon religion.
God,
and that was the moment where Spielberg was like, "I'm out.
I know.
I'm out.
The newest,
Can't do this.
newest
Go
movie,
get James Mangold."
It's gonna not be directed by Spielberg.
That's so weird. I just don't know. Anyway,
Set images show that
get
it's
to
probably going to be right around 69 with the first moon flight or moon landing.
oh, cool. Any idea what it's about?
That's no idea.
The moon landing. Interesting.
Time's
Okay.
flying. But yeah, that was Temple of Doom. I stand by
Indiana Jones
and the
and
Temple,
the
of,
Temple
Doom.
of Doom.
Good movie. I like it. Does it have a lot of problems from being made in the 80s? Yes, it does. But you can forgive them, maybe?
One final thought about that is that it's a product of Lucas and Spielberg's time. Think about where they came from. They're two guys post World War II that grew up on the kind of entertainment that was being created then. And what that kind of entertainment was the strong alpha male fighting the big bad foreigners. That was like post World War II and during World War II kind of entertainment. That's what it was all about. So in order to accurately do an homage to that, I see why they defaulted to all the elements that make Indiana Jones what it is. And I think after Temple, they realized it's a little safer just to go after the Nazis because they are evil and we can all agree on that. Whereas I think they did feel a little bit, maybe a little responsibility for how they portrayed foreign culture in Temple, and that it was, as you say, a little bit of a course correction. But I don't think that these guys were doing anything that was to the detriment of those cultures. They just wanted to tell the kind of story that they would see when they were younger. You know, right or wrong, that's kind of what the entertainment they grew up on was.
Right or wrong, I mean, we're going to watch a lot of movies that come from a time and an era that's a lot different from now, and it's fun to point out their flaws, but it doesn't make them worse. They shouldn't be burned or anything. They shouldn't be erased from our history. We're just having fun and talking about them, and film has come a long way. That's all. We're learning. Baby steps. Anyway, I think that is about it. I have been next to Aaron.
Yeah, and I've been in the company of Justin.
And you've been listening to Aaron and Justin Talk Sequels. Please follow us on all the social medias and review us on iTunes. That helps boost visibility of the podcast, so we appreciate it. And that's it.
And we'll be back. We'll be back in a little while with our next episode, which we know for sure will be
The Last
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yes, The Last Crusade. Formerly my favorite Indiana Jones, now my least favorite. I'm excited to talk about it.
Okay. Let's get to that.
Yeah.
All right.
Till next time.
Check you guys then.
Bye.
See ya.